let's get into the next topic real quick.
Yeah.
We'll peel through this because we got a crazy weekend.
Yeah.
So, fam,
So
what are we talking about to start off without our guest?
all right. So the House members recounted their trauma. And they also, like we mentioned with Caleb, they also purged Marjorie Taylor Greene. So let's look at what AOC had to say, and because let's just hear all of this because
29 days ago, on January 6th of 2021, insurrectionists attacked our capital, seeking to overturn the results of our nation's election. 29 days ago, the glass in and around this very chamber was shattered by gunshots, clubs, by individuals seeking to restrain and murder members of Congress duly elected to carry out the duties of their office. 29 days ago, Officer Sicknick, who just laid in honor yesterday in our nation's capital, was murdered on the steps just outside this hollowed floor. 2 Capitol police officers have lost their lives since, in addition to the 4 other people who died on the events of January 6th. 29 days ago, food service workers, staffers, children ran or hid for their lives from violence deliberately incited by the former President of the United States. Sadly, less than 29 days later, with little to no accountability for the bloodshed and trauma of the 6th, some are already demanding that we move on, or worse, attempting to minimize, discredit, or belittle the accounts of survivors. In doing so, they not only further harm those who were there that day and provide cover for those responsible, but they also send a tremendously damaging message to survivors of trauma all across this country, that the way to deal with trauma, violence, and targeting is to paper it over, minimize it, and move on. Sadly, this is all too often what we hear from survivors of trauma as the reason why they don't get care, that what they experienced wasn't bad enough or too bad to talk about, or that they are afraid of being invalidated, accused of exaggeration, or making a mountain out of a molehill. As a result, thousands, if not millions, deny themselves the care that they need and deserve to live better lives. 29 days ago, our nation's capital was attacked. That is the big story. And in that big story reside thousands of individual accounts, just as valid and important as the other. Tonight, for this special order, we will begin to hear and commit to the congressional record just some of those many stories. I thank my colleagues who have bravely come forward today to share their accounts.
Fam, move on. That was started by the Democrats and when they were trying to look at, a 21-year-old staffer having sex with the president in his chambers, and just move on. That was their whole movement the Democrats started. So it's kind of odd to see now, it's being used against them in a way. So please, your opinions, because
Okay, well, again, I feel like AOC is extremely manipulative right here because nobody is attacking or even questioning. I mean, okay, maybe some people are questioning her whether she actually experienced trauma or not, but I'm not even going to question that. Like I said, I'm not questioning her sexual assault. I'm not questioning her trauma. I'm questioning the fact that she is now making a huge deal about this, having the time and the audacity to start a whole thing, a whole ceremony where people where all these Congress people air their grievances, where they're spending they had one day of trauma that people experience every single day of trauma, and we don't have the means of going there and airing our grievances to Congress, even though we should. We should all be allowed to go, hey, where's my check? You said I was going to have one right away as soon as Biden won, and I don't have it. So why the fuck did I vote for you? Oh, hey, you said you were going to stop deporting people. I see you're deporting immigrants that are here illegally, unlike you said you were going to do. Can you stop doing that? We should be allowed to air our grievances. Instead, what we're all focused on is watching this and making sure we walk on eggshells because we don't want to say something that would be constructed as being insensitive to AOC and insensitive to what she experienced, what about the insensitivity that we're all living through right now? The lack of care by our congresspeople who are public servants who are supposed to be representing people. I mean, we just got done with a discussion that these people are now representing corporations. They're not representing us. And yet I can't even say anything because, you know, it's like, oh, they make a meme saying I blame AOC for everything. I don't blame AOC for everything. She is extremely being used as she's being used as an extreme influence in the political Democratic Party to influence people to think a certain way through these emotional manipulations of you have to, you know, if you don't accept what I'm saying, then you are hurting survivors. You are hurting people who are traumatic. That is an illegitimate thought process. That doesn't make any sense. You can't say that just because people don't agree with what you're doing and how you're presenting this information, that they're being disrespectful, that they're anti-woman, that they don't care about people who experience trauma. No, get yourself a therapist. Go take care of yourself or step aside. I tell that to whoever, anybody that's in Congress that is traumatized by what happened, by all means, go take care of it. But the people's needs aren't being met, and you have the audacity to bring in a ceremony. You couldn't bring fucking force a vote to a floor vote. We had 2 impeachment floor votes before we ever had a force of vote. Then we have this shit going on, and then we have Marjorie Taylor Greene. You expect me to tolerate this theater that they're all putting on? I'm not saying that they weren't scared at any point. When we were even there, we were like, oh, we might get trampled on. They might arrest people. Somebody might, shoot somebody. It is a precarious situation. I'm not saying you couldn't possibly be scared. Yeah. But I wasn't like, oh my God, I need to sit down and everybody's a terrorist and let me have, it's just, there's too many things I have to worry about that don't allow me to even have the privilege of airing my grievances.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 areas, fam, that I'm kind of a little bit curious about right now, or I want to question. The other day when I did listen to Jason Whitlock, a man of color, talk about, hey, listen, you sitting here, you want to talk about the insurrection. I'm not going to even get to the point. I'm going to kind of talk to Johnny about that. I'll ask Johnny the third question. But let me start with the first 2 is number 1. Jason Whitlock said that he watched all summer, all these rallies going on, all these protests that were going on, and then these people joined and buildings burned and people died, whatnot. He quoted, this is some serious hypocrisy, that the fact that the Democrats are just, fixated and talking about what happened at the Capitol building and just ignoring what happened. In fact, they even pushed and promoted what went on all summer. So what are your thoughts to that when they say, what about the hypocrisy from either side? Because once again, when we saw all these protests out in the streets, we weren't out there trying to demonize people. We were looking at the government saying, why are they angry? What's going on? Right. This just isn't about George Floyd getting killed. That George Floyd was the match to light the fire. People are poor, people are starving, people are suffering, and they need help. That one thing just, boom, set them off. So what do you say to the hypocrisy, the fact that the Democrats are like, we're not moving on from this, when all these protests happened all summer, and there were people who died, police officers who died, buildings that got burnt. What are your thoughts about comparing the 2 when the right says this is hypocrisy?
I mean, it is hypocritical in the greater sense. It's hypocritical that they're gonna not apply the same consistent rules to everybody. If you're gonna call this an insurrection, which it wasn't, then everything else, you give impetus to the right to call that a crazy riot of Antifa and blah blah blah. Which, yes, there were things burned and there was people who got hurt, but it wasn't the vast majority of the time. And the news picked up on that and said, oh, look at all this burning and blah blah blah. I don't think the news was partial partial to Antifa as people think. It actually elevated the idea that these are radicals and they must be stopped, the same way that the right saw that and took that. But I think if we're talking about ideology, then the left is always going to say that was different because they have these people want equality racial and BLM, whereas these people are all white supremacists. But that's the problem. Not all of these people were white supremacists. Were there white supremacists there? Sure. Is everybody that was there a white supremacist? No. A lot of people were actually there because they literally were mad about the election. They were literally, we were there. That's what they were fucking mad about.
They were
So
mad
you
about the
can't
election,
make a
yeah.
giant paintbrush and say that no, that mine is better because I had a better belief system. I might agree with the belief system more of the people protesting during George Floyd, but I still think it's the right. It is their God-given freaking American right, or whatever you fucking believe in, to actually go out there and protest. People died, people were hurt, but also this didn't have to fucking happen. They could have taken all the precautions, and they knew this was going to happen, and they did this on freaking purpose.
Yeah. Well, here's my other question, fam. What do they want? What does AOC want? If she doesn't want to move on, what does AOC and the Democrats want? What's going to fix this situation? I mean, what is she asking for?
I think she's being used to divert attention away from the fact that she failed on force of vote and largely got exposed, that she's pushing censorship and got exposed, and that the fact that Americans haven't gotten a fucking stimulus and they still don't have health care.
That's right.
She's distracting
Yeah.
from that right now,
because it
because
was
look what we're
trending.
fucking talking about. Look what we're talking about now. We're talking about them and their problems and their grievances, and if we're not sympathetic to that, we're the problem when they're not sympathetic to us at all. They haven't been for a long fucking time. And when you point that out, people are like, AOC, how dare you criticize the only ally we have in Congress, or one of the only allies we have. They're not fucking allies if they're not doing their jobs.
Yeah.
So stop being a sycophant and actually push these people to do what they said they were going to do. The reasons we fundraise for them, the reasons we push people to vote for them. Because if they're not doing that, then they're no good.
It's so funny because I hear a lot of people say that, fam, that, you know what I'm saying, well, the whole Congress is messed up as it is, right? But the people who are closest to our ideology and our movement is the AOC and the squad.
No.
So why attack them? Why are we attacking them? Why don't we attack the other people? So I do hear that all the time, but then I don't see those same people responding back after that email. In fact, they're doubling down and like trying to play it off like, oh, you're QAnon for pointing out that this email, you know what I'm saying? And then people were like Walker Bragman or Jerkoff Bragman, whatever his names are. It's like, these people actually think that AOC did this. They actually blame AOC. That's the one right there. But my last question is really quickly, we'll just get on this, is to Johnny. Johnny, do you really think, because, you know, people like Poikin have said, like, if you think this is an insurrection, come step close and let me smack you across the head with a mackerel, a fish. He's being comedy about it, you know what I'm saying, like that. But do you really think, and I say this all the time, and I just need your opinion on this, because I'm like, if a form of Trumpers really wanted to have an insurrection, I'd still think they'd be out there fighting today. Like, they would really come with some serious artillery, you know. And you've been around a lot of these protests. Do you think this is a few people in the protests that got out of control and went mad, or do you think this was a real insurrection?
I mean, those people in the front who were there, they wanted to, you know, when they got in there, I heard somebody yell, okay, so let's just sit down on the floor now. Let's just sit down on the floor. And then that was it. You know, there's obviously there's always people in all groups who aren't, you know, the group isn't monolithic. Just like with BLM, just like with this group, you know, there are people that stole shit that they shouldn't be stealing shit. There's people that broke shit that they shouldn't be breaking shit. There's people that you know, say things that, you know, that we disagree with, obviously. And you know, I think the whole thing is that AOC, I feel like the Democratic Party ordered AOC to do this because to distract away from the fact that, because Biden not giving out 2K checks, that was trending. Yeah. That got big, huge, that got everybody's eyes on that. And then, just the other reasons that you listed, fam, just to push more censorship. Even though she signed that letter, you know, she was kind of like,
symbolic.
And
it
they,
means nothing. It's yelling into the air.
It was symbolic, you know, write a bill. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what's it called? When she went on that rant, she said, I guarantee I will fight hard to not make sure this doesn't ever happen again.
Yeah.
That was the scariest part, I think, of that that rant, because
what
know,
does that mean? What is she gonna do?
Instead of, like, you know, she throws out the fact that all these Trump supporters, you know, that they're all crazy and they're all racist. You know, racist and all white supremacists, and this is all an insurgency, and you can see the parallels of how the police reacted, and I feel like that was purposely done because the resources are there in DC. It's one of the most surveilled places in the world, right?
And they keep
you're telling me,
film.
And you're telling me they can't get cops out there and stuff? Like, they can't get the military out there in a snap, in a pinch?
Yeah.
So really, the questions need to be asked is who only allowed those many cops who, and then directed them, hey, there's too many, just get out of there, because they started walking out under orders, it looks like. Or there's like, or they themselves who were trying to, hold a wall to get into the Capitol. They're like, fuck this, we don't have any support. There's no reinforcements coming in.
Yeah.
They barely put out any tear gas. They did when we were
little.
there.
Nothing like we saw.
Not like in Portland.
Not like in Portland. We were like I was coughing.
Boom,
It's
boom,
yeah.
boom, boom,
Yeah.
They had snipers on roofs,
and they did that on purpose to up the whole like, oh yeah, like see they're racist and the GOP did this and blah blah blah. It wasn't just the GOP. I believe, to answer your question, it was an inside. They knew that shit was gonna happen. They manipulated the situation, and it was both. It was the establishment in both ends, because there's Lindsey Graham is a Republican. He's an establishment Republican. Then you have the Democrats who are establishment Democrats. They're one and the same. They're best friends. They want to build a stronger Republican Party. Joe Biden told you that. What they don't want is the populist right to exist, and they don't want they continue vilifying them, so the left continues focusing on those people who have no power.
Exactly.
And so then we're really ultimately not attacking the establishment, which is why we need to talk to Republicans more to bring them, hey, no, this isn't what we mean. We're not AOC. I don't like AOC at all. I'm this close to hating her. Like, I do not like her at all. Like, she's awful.
And you campaigned for her, and you fundraised for her.
Yeah, we did all that stuff. We did,
And the point I wanted to make was that a true fearless leader of the people who was in that building would hear out what those people were saying.
Yeah.
The establishment wants to maintain control that the narrative that says the elections are legit. All that. When in fact, if anyone who's listening right now, if you actually go to your election office right now and try to find out some information,
just do it.
Ask them to show you, the machines that count. Ask them about SIM card, if there's any memory cards or anything. You're gonna find so many discrepancies. You're gonna find, I can get back to you, or you can email me, or you call them. I'll call you back in 1 or 2 days, and I still haven't gotten a call from Jeff Klein.
You won't.
I got. You won't. And so what I'm saying is that they want to maintain that narrative, and a true fearless leader would actually listen to what they were saying, and try to reach out, maybe, and try to see what they can actually do. Okay, hey, actually, the elections aren't transparent at all, or there's some serious questions we need to address with the elections. Why are they like this?
Yeah, even right now, Johnny, they can say, listen, we're not going to go back and change the results of the Biden-Trump election. What's done is done. Moving forward, what can we do to make it more transparent so Democrats and Republicans will be more confident in the election system? Because right now,
if they wanted unity, actual unity,
but they don't. That's why they want to address it. They won't. This subject is so taboo they won't even talk about it, and that's what's all about Marjorie Taylor Greene and why they're going after her is because she's still hyping up about the elections. And right now, we're learning more about the audit processes. The curtain has been pulled back. It's
this is why they got to squash it.
And that's the thing. It might not be on mainstream media. There's still people out there saying that you're brainwashed if you think the elections were messed up.
It's conspiracy theory.
It's not. And no matter what, I mean, there's no way any logical person, if they understood the way the system works, if they actually took the time to see how the voting works, how the counting works, whatnot. And that's why they don't want to go deep into this election, because they had another form of swinging it. It wasn't just the machines, right? That's why they're happy with everybody talking about the machines, because they're not talking about ballot stuffing. They're not talking about clustering. They're not talking, and people are going to start wondering, where do these ballots come from? Who makes them? How do they have this accountability process? Why don't we have tracking? What's going on? Then they're going to learn about the auditing system that is all fugazi. But listen, let's get to the, we have to talk. We need more time in our shows for White Knights. So let's get Representative Dean Phillips up there.
So Dean Phillips went out there and did this whole theatrical display of white knighting.
We know what it feels like, searching for something, anything, with which to defend ourselves, and realizing a pencil is about all we had. And we know what it feels like thinking that it's a real possibility that we would not see our families and loved ones again.
Oh, jeez.
We won't forget. We won't forget. But I'm not here this evening to seek sympathy or just to tell my story, rather to make a public apology for recognizing that we were sitting ducks in this room as the chamber was about to be breached. I screamed to my colleagues to follow me across the aisle to the Republican side of the chamber so that we could blend in. For I felt that the insurrectionists who were trying to break down the doors right here would spare us if they simply mistook us for Republicans. Jeez. But within moments, I recognized that blending in was not an option available to my colleagues of color. So I'm here tonight to say to my brothers and sisters in Congress and all around our country, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. For I had never really understood, what privilege really means. It took a violent mob of insurrectionists and a lightning bolt moment in this very room. But now I know. Believe me, I really know.
Okay, so anything to say on that? Because I kind of.
Jesus Christmas! Come on, fam.
Well, it's true that the Republicans in Congress are all white, but I mean,
yeah, but
yeah,
there's a reason why there's so many. They've had more candidates, people of color, running for Republicans this year than any other year. You know what I'm saying? Because of stuff like this. They're
mostly white, I think.
What's that?
There probably are some.
There's a few people of color.
Okay,
in Congress that are
but for me,
Republican,
the point is, how are we going to? You don't bring diversity, and you don't bring attention to the economic issues of people of color without paying attention to economic issues of the working class. And the Democrats haven't done that. They tokenize and use minorities to build and fundraise their party, but they don't do shit for them.
Yeah.
As a minority, I'm telling you, they don't do shit for us. They've never once actually followed through on their promises when it comes to immigration. And they really are pushing, along with neocon Republicans, regime change wars, and they're going to be pushing that in the global South, and they're going to be ruining people's lives, sanctioning them, and continuing to do this and bomb people. And it's hypocritical to sit there on your pulpit and pontificate that you are somehow now no longer white privileged because AOC told something and you're over here white knighting for her, when these people are the reason that poor people are unable to actually live in this society, because they haven't done anything forever. And unfortunately, the vast majority of poor people, a lot of them, are people of color. So if you're going to address any sort of trauma that you say, well, I never knew this, address the class struggle, address the people, the working people. Now this is all about them and their fucking trauma. And the only person I had any sort of compassion for in this whole thing was Rashida Tlaib, because she's the only one that I felt was genuine when she said this, because she talked about the time she got attacked the very first day she wasn't even sworn in yet. Because I know there is a lot of anti-Muslim hate, but that hate doesn't just come from Republicans. Yeah. That hate also comes from the Zionist Democratic Party.
Yeah, and they went along with 9/11. They went along with what happened after. You know what I'm saying? They were, if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists. And they joined with us in that mentality and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in fact, Joe Biden was the one who pushed the Senate to get involved and whatnot. So, I mean, that's the guy you have now as your president of the United States. And really, to tell you the truth, right now, people need to check, right? Stop with your crying, your tears, your theatrics. Get people their check. They need resources for their children. They need resources for their loved ones, for their older people, for their moms that are sitting in nursing homes and whatnot. Cut with the bullshit. Stop with your theatrics on the floor. Get the people, the poor people, the help they need.
And I just want to read this quote because you bring it up all the time, Pasta, but
here
Trump? It is. Yeah. So when blacks voted 80% Dem, Malcolm X called them chumps And here's the direct quote. "You put them first," said Malcolm X, "and they put you last. Because you're a chump, a political chump. Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you are dumb enough to walk around and continue to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race," which is some hefty words there.
And that's what I say to all the Latinos too that continuously
Absolutely.
vote for the Democratic Party. You're a traitor to actual working class solidarity with Latinos, actual working class solidarity. You're not helping these people like come out of poverty by voting for Democrats. It's done us no good at all.
Yeah, and that was 2/3 of the government, Johnny.
In that
Can you imagine
quote,
it's 3/3?
2/3. Now it's a full
3/3.
They control all
3/3
aspects of the
3/3.
government,
I
and
know,
they're still not giving you the breadcrumbs of 2,000 checks. It should have been 2,000 monthly, and what's it called?
UBI?
No, but money back for all the $2,000 we didn't make monthly.
Prorated. They want that prorated
Retroactive.
check, baby.
Prorated.
How much of this next speech of Cori are we going to listen to?
Not the whole thing.
All right.
Go to 3 minutes, I think 30 seconds. I just wanted to hear some of her rhetoric.
I said, "Let's true." We're on the ground being brutalized. It felt like one of those days. And I just remember taking a second thinking, if they touch these doors, if they hit these doors the way they hit that door, if they hit these doors and come anywhere near my staff, and I'm just going to be real honest about it, my thought process was, we banging to the end. I'm not letting them take out my people, and you're not taking me out. We've come too far. So, Madam Speaker, St. Louis and I rise with a message for our Republican colleagues. On January 6th, I thought about January 3rd, and I thought about how we all raised our right hands up and took an oath. Each and every one of us on this very floor, we swore that we would support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Even though that Constitution wasn't written for people who look like me, even that Constitution wasn't written by people who look like me, and even though that Constitution cemented an unjust nation for people like me, my team and I got to work, and we unveiled legislation to investigate and expel those who were responsible for inciting this attack so that we could defend it, because we have a duty to fight for a more perfect union, because we cannot stand up to white supremacy in this. Because if we cannot stand up to white supremacy in this moment as representatives, then why did you run for office in the first place? No matter what district you represent, no matter where you live, no matter Democrat or Republican, you represent a district that is on average about 700,000 people, meaning you have to resent those who love you, those who despise you, those who voted for you, those who swear they'll never cast a vote for you. People who talk like you and people who don't look like you. Building better communities, building better lives, building a better society. It's not a Democratic or Republican issue. We can't build a better society if members are too scared to stand up and act to reject the white supremacist attack that happened right before our eyes. How can we trust that you will address the suffering that white supremacy causes on a day-to-day basis in the shadows if you can't even address the white supremacy that happens right in front of you in your house?
Right. I'm really sick and tired of listening. I'm not saying that white supremacy isn't an issue, that it isn't awful, and that we shouldn't tackle it or go after it. But she's sidestepping the real issue. We were there. We understand why the majority of people are there. They were there because they don't feel that we have a democracy, that we don't have free and fair and transparent elections. And no matter how many times people like Cori Bush or anybody in the Indian media that say that you're just brainwashed, you're stupid, you're a QAnoner for thinking that this election wasn't a fair election, you're just sidestepping the real problem. People know now, and it happens to be a lot of Trump people because those are the ones who got screwed. But those of us who know, who've been following for elections for a long time, know that you're sidestepping and you're not addressing the real issue.
Right.
That's it.
That's the problem. It's not that I disagree with what she's saying. I 100% agree that white supremacy is an issue. I think that especially somebody who's lived in St. Louis like her, she understands that there is a divide I went to school in St. Louis when I was younger. There was definitely that divide between white people and black people. And I know how that is. I respect her point of view. Having said that, they're using people like Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib and all these people that have good intentions, I think, when it comes to at least domestic issues, and they have undergone actual and experienced racism. The Democratic Party is using them to divide and politicize their own narrative to completely obfuscate the fact that our election system was questioned and our election system was exposed and our election system is not trusted by the vast majority of Americans. Even before this, if you polled Americans, most of them don't vote because they don't think it matters. They literally say that, especially the younger generations. So when you have an exposure like that and you have a bunch of people protesting, not for because they want everybody to turn, because believe it or not, those people didn't come in wearing Klan suits. They didn't come in shouting Hail Hitler or any sort of thing like that. They were there saying this isn't fair, blah blah blah, like Trump is my president. The same thing that people would said, Trump wasn't my president. It's the same thing. They were angry about the election, whether you believe the election was fraudulent or not. They had the right to protest. Saying that all of that was only a white supremacist attack is disingenuous, and it distracts and it continues this divide, and we don't solve the issue of why these people were angry. Because it's not convenient for the Democratic Party.
And at this channel right here, we told you the main reason for their being upset. The main reason why all those people were out there, you saw it right here in this independent media channel. Leftists that are not in the mainstream told you our elections are shite in every way, shape, and form. Even in the most progressive state in California, they're shit. And it's going to lead to some serious problems. When we went to sleep, okay, there were 6 states which Donald Trump should have won by a landslide. There was no way they can catch up. But they did catch up, and you never explained why. You never showed your homework. You never allowed for the audience. You didn't talk about the elections. You just sealed the shit up, called it a day, and said, that's it. Just deal with it. Digest it. Well, these people did not, and they were out there because they felt like they were robbed. And if you really are against white supremacy, why don't you talk against the goddamn people in your own party who are warmongers, who are bombing people in indigenous countries?
That is white supremacy.
Okay, that is white supremacy. What they're doing in South and Central America, which was Donald Trump's worst foreign policies, and I said it, if you want to call him a racist, look at those policies right there. Those were racist policies. You ain't saying shit. And meanwhile, your president of your party is recognizing Juan Guaido. Please.
And wrote the 1994 crime bill.
Exactly. One of the most racist pieces of legislation out there. Talked about building a fence way before Donald Trump was even around, and was one of the big proponents of bombing Iraq.
And Kamala called him a racist. And now this,
and Kamala locked up black men at a ratio of 12-1 to white people when it comes to low-level marijuana charges. 12-1. And then the national average is 8-1.
And then she laughed about smoking weed.
And she didn't give a transgender person their hormones they needed.
Yeah, and let a black man get murdered and die on death row because she refused to release information.
No prosecuting Steve Mnuchin. I mean, we could go on forever with her records. All right. The last one I want to show, two last things, Rashida, and just the fact that they're using this to kick off Marjorie Taylor Greene. So let's hear a little bit of her speech. I want you to watch AOC here because, like I said, the reason I'm showing you guys this is because I don't think that the squad is a monolith. I think some of them are actually genuine, but they don't know things. And then I think some of them actually know and are manipulative. So I think, let's just watch this.
Thank you so much to my colleague for her incredible courage. I asked her to go last because I get because this is so personal. This is so hard because, as many of my colleagues know, my closest colleagues know, on my very first day of orientation, I got my first death threat. It was a serious one. They took me aside. The FBI had to go to the gentleman's home. I didn't even get sworn in yet, and someone wanted me dead for just existing. More came later, uglier, more violent. One celebrating and writing the New Zealand massacre and hoping that more would come. Another mentioning my dear son, Adam. Mentioning him by name. Each one paralyzed me each time. So what happened on January 6th, all I could do was thank Allah that I wasn't here. I felt overwhelming relief, and I feel bad for Alexandria, so many of my colleagues that were here. But as I saw it, I thought to myself, thank God I am not there. I saw the images that they didn't get to see until later. My team and I decided at that point we'd keep the death threats away. We'd try to report them, document them, to keep them away from me, because it just paralyzed me, and all I wanted to do was come here and serve the people that raised me. The people that told my mother, who only had 8th grade education, that she deserves human dignity. People that believed in me. And so it's hard. It's hard when my 7 brothers and 6 sisters beg me to get protection, many urging me to get a gun for the first time. And I have to tell you, the trauma from just being here, existing as a Muslimah, is so hard. But imagine my team, which I lovingly just adore. They are diverse. I have LGBTQ staff. I have a beautiful Muslimah that wears her hijab proudly in the halls. I have Black women that are so proud to be here to serve their country. And I worry every day for their lives because of this rhetoric. I never thought that they would feel unsafe here. And so I asked my colleagues to please try not to dehumanize what's happening. This is real. And you know, many of our residents, from the shootings in Charlottesville to the massacre at the synagogue, all of it is led by hate rhetoric like this. And so I urge my colleagues to please take what happened on January 6th seriously. It will lead to more death.
What colleagues is she talking about, though, fam?
What?
What colleagues is she talking about, though, too, as well?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. So the Democrats have turned this into a party fight. Like look what the Republicans are doing. Oh, it's only the Republicans doing this. But when you get down to it, policy-wise, both Republicans and Democrats vote for imperialism, vote for disastrous regime change that is a mechanism of imperialism, right? They vote for these things. They don't do anything for the working class. They keep poor people, who are a lot of people of color, at the poverty level. This is what they do. With what Rashida just said, though, like, I feel it's honest. Like, the way she's upset, the way she speaks, there's no control in that. Meaning there's no, like, I'm not hearing this manipulative thing. If you've ever studied behavioral, human behavior and her gestures and all of that. It's very psychological. If you've ever studied that, you can usually tell, like, when somebody's lying and when she's being genuine. She's talking about her experience when, in the beginning, like I said, this has actually happened to her. She has actually been threatened because she's Muslim. There's a group of subset of Americans who are anti-Muslim, who really hate Muslims. Why? You know who did that? The people who fucking pushed for the war on terror. That's who did that, who brought in that hatred. I remember being in St. Louis and seeing how brown kids were treated, like really Muslim brown kids, and even some Indian kids who got mistaken for being Muslim because there wasn't a lot of diversity there. So, like, I know what she's talking about. I know what it's like to be in the Midwest and be, I'm not Muslim, but to see how these people were treated. And that was something that was brought up by the war on terror. That is something that was exacerbated by this need for American jingoism and to go into Iraq and the Middle East. That's what the Democrats and Republicans both did. And now it's it's still there.
Yeah.
But that's not what this was about. And so as much as I agree with Rashida that it's unfair that she was threatened, I don't condone threatening these people in that way. Threatening their family members, especially somebody that was just, you're threatening them on the basis of something that has nothing to do with policy or economics or anything of their performance. You're threatening them on their religion, etc., and you're threatening their family. I mean, that's unacceptable. Now, if you want to make AOC or the squad uncomfortable because they're not doing their fucking job, yeah, you go protest, you do the things you need to do. But that's the thing. Where it comes from, that criticism has to be something that holds. It's valid. I will never criticize somebody for something as low as what their religion is. I don't give a crap what your religion is. And so it's just, again, it's just hurtful to see this, because then you're like, yeah, I can sympathize with her, but at the same time, they're completely misaligning this whole situation.
Yep.
It's all about people needing answers to this distrust they have in the government. It's not white supremacy that's leading people to protest in the streets on either end. It's more so a fight against an oppressive system.
Yeah. And if there's any person I'd like to hear her talk out against right now, it should be Anthony Blinken. You know what I'm saying? That guy has been anti-Muslim for so long, you know, and that's the whole thing. It wasn't just one party who, you know, gave us this whole, if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists kind of mentality. It was the establishment, hand in hand. Barack Obama, what he did in Libya was awful. What he did in Syria was awful. What he did in Afghanistan, he amped it up and stuff. So, I mean, there are people you have to point the finger at as well. I don't want to talk too much because I think it was a genuine situation. But once again, where we're leading the anger is at the wrong place. And, you know,
misdirected anger.
And one of the other great distractions, I think, is
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
The greatest distraction.
Yeah, I just wanted to update you guys. The House voted to kick Greene off of committee over her embrace of the conspiracy theories, according to The Hill. I mean, this is what they're reporting. And it's, you know, the problem with this is that it sets a precedent, like we just said with Caleb, right? So these 11 Republicans actually voted against their own party with Democrats to get rid of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Chances are they're more establishment type of Republicans, or more, you know, like not as populist. And this is really interesting because the thing I want to point out about this is that House Republicans are wary still of angering GOP base that embraces Trump and Greene, because there's that divide too in the Republican Party, right? There's that divide, just like there is a little bit of a divide on the Democratic Party. The comments that we're saying, like that they're going after her for, are actually happened before she became a Congress member, which is even worse, because what we're doing now is setting a dangerous precedent. And this is where I agree with the Republicans, because they're saying that the Democrats are setting a dangerous precedent with the majority of the party taking unilateral action to dictate the minorities committee roster. Tom Cole of Oklahoma said, "I think you are frankly overlooking an unprecedented nature of the acts that you've decided upon and where that may lead us when the majority changes." Again, this is what I was telling Caleb. This is going to come back and bite them in the ass. If, let's say, somebody wants to remove AOC next time because she's being incendiary and you know, ridiculous, how are you going to even oppose that? Yeah. How are you going to have a leg to stand on? If she's making complete accusations against Ted Cruz and all these people saying they tried to kill her, they could use that and say, well, look, this is what she said. And it sets a precedent of tit for tat. It sets this precedent that is dangerous, because now they're trying to actually remove her from office. First, they're stripping her away of committees, which lends her powerless, right? And if you're going to do that, then what? So the next step is to remove somebody you don't like because you disagree with her ideology. Yeah. So wait, how is that democratic? This person was elected by the people to represent her district. Yeah. I'm sorry, but that's unconstitutional of you to do that. And so if we're going to be breaking that, then you have what protocols then are we following now, just because you don't like her ideology? And we all know that it's more than anything. It's not about her Q beliefs. I don't give two craps about that. It's about the fact that she's raising concern for the election. And that's what they want to shut down. Just like Cori Bush completely neglected to tell everybody that the election, that her bill was wanting to stop and punish people who were talking about election fraud. Yeah. These Republican members. That's not what they're telling you, but that's what this is about.
Yeah, that's what it is more than anything. And, just like you had mentioned, too, as well, how it can come back and bite you in the ass if a Republican's there. Also, the fact that the Democrats are kind of saying, oh, it's a QAnon person. Like, somebody said the other day, can you believe this woman believes that the plane really didn't hit the Pentagon? She really believes that the Vegas shooting was staged. And I'm just sitting there with a white face going, yeah, and stuff. Now people are going to dive in and look at these situations, and they're going to have further beliefs that, these things didn't happen the way they were told that they were happening and stuff. And they're going to have further distrust in the government. They're going to have further distrust in the Democrats for trying to silence people. Or not, it's just going to have a, what's the word I'm looking for? The opposite effect,
Right. And she had...
It's going to be counterproductive to what they're trying to do anyways. Yeah. Either way, it's going to come back and bite them in the ass.
And just real quick, the picture that they had of Marjorie, that the reason they said she was threatening was just a picture of her with holding an AR-15, I believe it was, and then AOC and the squad behind. Like, it was just a meme that somebody made of her holding that, and she liked it or something, and it's just, they're saying that's threatening violence against AOC. Again, here's AOC again, once again, the victim of white supremacy. Like, I just think like this is a reach. It's an overstep. And the comments she has made before should not, there's Ilhan. The comments she has made before should not be cause to set this dangerous precedent. Maybe she should be, called out. Maybe she should be, why are you supporting this? I mean, I think I understand why you can say that this seems violent, but at the same time, I just think like now, so what she posts on social media and all of this, it's just like, I just think like this sets a dangerous precedent that's bigger than what she is, posting. I don't agree with this, a congressperson to do this, because you're just like,
you're asking for trouble and stuff, and it can be persuaded many ways, and you know what I'm saying. But
you're helping lend that credibility to that. These people are the problem and the riot. Yeah. So, but then again, like this is missing the point that the vast majority, it's just adding to the fact that AOC is a representation of the radical left when she's not, and it pisses me off that people think that socialism is AOC. No. It's not. She's not. And it's just, this is what makes me angry, though. When Marjorie Taylor Greene does shit like this, it also adds fuel to that fire. It also keeps Republicans thinking that, AOC and those people, they're bad. And then, AOC's like, oh, look, they're white supremacists. And they just keep going at it. And neither of them are a representation of where the vast majority of people really are.
Because it's turning into like a reality fucking show, right?
It's drama.
It's drama.
It's like Facebook
and they need to be focusing on what they can do to help the people who are dying.
Yep.
And who are losing their jobs and who have no health care and don't have any money
look
in
what
their
we're
pockets.
talking about. We're talking about this shit.
Yeah, I know. Marjorie Taylor
It's
Greene
so
is
stupid.
So sad, right?